genuine piece of shit game. It's just like unplayable. Genuinely unplayable. What the fuck is Black Myth Zhu Qing, bro? What the fuck is that? Well, I did that, and it doesn't fucking help that. Does it? Wow, that helps so much, bro. Maybe it's this fucking... Oh no, it was off. Nice. Okay, so the game is just terrible. The game is just bad. Okay. The game is just horrible. Okay. Okay, the game is just bad. Yeah, okay. Nice. Yeah, the game is just trash. It is what it is. Also, I can't even have my fucking what? Expo on my fucking memory? Like, are we fucking serious? Yeah, well, they're not updating shit, are they? Well, the previous driver crashed, so this one crashes as well, so go fuck yourself.
Hi everyone, if you're trying to play Black Myth Wukong and are having this error graphics driver crash, a D3 D12 device crash has been detected over here, and make sure that you end every task. Right click on your Steam, then you want to make sure that you run Steam as administrator. Once Steam game directory, you want to head over to Steam, to this link, I leave all the drivers, apply, and then okay. If
that doesn't do anything.
then you want to head over to this link, then you want to press submit over here, then you want to select your Windows version and then download and install the latest driver from over here. If you have an Intel GPU, then the latest driver from over here. The driver for you once it runs finding.
Wow, that doesn't help, does it?
If you have an AMD GPU, then you display driver installer and you want to install your...
Terrible advice. That literally does nothing. Fuck you.
Hi everyone, if you're... Hello guys, check the description.
Well, would you look at that? I already fucking did all that. How about you go fuck yourself? Yeah, the game is just not worth playing, I guess. Again, these Chinese games are just always terribly optimized. They just always are. I don't know why. I don't know what the fuck is going on with these dog shit ass Chinese games, but well. Run in compatibility mode. That just doesn't sound like it would do anything. Sure. I'll run it in compatibility mode, man. Sure, brother. Sure, I'll do that. Yes, let's do that. Ooh. Yeah, this game is just dog shit. It is what it is. Shader compilation. Why? Ugh, what a fucking... what a joke.
Associated with guilt, shame, regret, betrayal, a loss of meaning or identity. So someone with PTSD might constantly be thinking, I'm not safe. But a person with a moral injury might be thinking, I'm not a good person, or the world isn't the way I thought it was. Also, if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know that medieval people had a very specific conception of how the world worked and what their individual place was in it. And it was a much more concrete conception than what we have now. So that's really important to understand and remember. If this conception got shattered, the consequences could be totally disastrous. The term moral injury was actually coined by the psychiatrist Jonathan Shea in his book Achilles in Vietnam, which I highly recommend if the topic of this video interests you. Although it focuses more on mental trauma in the classical world, it's still very relevant. Shea says that veterans can usually recover from horror, fear, and grief once they get home and they start reintegrating into civilian life, provided that what they think of as right hasn't also been violated. So basically, you can survive the terrors
Does it
of
not
war,
load if
but
I'm
what
not
leaves the real
like
lasting
fucking
damage
tabbed
is
in
when
or
you
what?
survive doing something or watching something be done
Oh,
that
it doesn't.
violates
Nice.
everything you believe about how the world is supposed to work. So just
How
think
great.
about
I
a
need to
knight
sit
going
here
to
and look at this
crusade
picture
who
of fucking
exists in this
monkeys.
moral framework of the church and
I'm so glad this game is so good. Now tell me, boy, now wouldn't that be sweet? Woo-hoo, wee-hoo, woo-hoo, wee-hoo. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Cause I've been up in the palace and I could be a funny girl. Where's my... Now tell me, boy, now wouldn't that be sweet? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. S 26.67. A symphony Rain to me, tell me what you do. I can see you, no, they do. I can see you. My baby. Why does every fucking modern game have this dog shit as well? Like, why do I have to sit here and load shaders? Like, are you fucking serious? What a joke. My love, so don't give away my love. Also, why does Rivals have to do it? Like, the game is already terribly running and it looks horrible as well. Why do you have to wait for fucking shader compilations? Like... I love having to wait, being not able to do anything. I can see it from his hands, so there's an understand. I'm thinking give away my love. Why is this so dark as well? Like, yeah, what the fuck, man? I don't. Yeah, no, man. Yeah. Oh, this is so fucking. This is so stupid. Can't see you by my side. I could be my baby. Well, the game started off so well and then boom. It literally fell flat within fucking half an hour of playing the game. That's crazy. Love. I don't know, this game just gives me Wu Chang vibes and I really don't like Wu Chang. That game is so fucking terrible. That's still to this day the worst Souls-like game I've ever played in my life. What a horrible game that was. The fact that I even got so far into it is just impressive, if anything. That game is really bad. All the small things, the tears, the seeds, should like honest. Always, I know those live at my show, waiting. Say it ain't so, I will not go. Turn the lights off, carry me home. Shader compilation successful. Wow. Surely that means the game won't crash again. Surely that's what that means. No woman can take away my love. My love. My love. No woman that can take away my love. Well, this compatibility mode is really fucking doing a number on how fast the game loads. These two guys aren't here. Ah, man, I'm stuck on a fucking rock. Yeah, like, that's just AIDS, though. Yeah, bro, I'm just stuck on a fucking rock. Like, that attack is just such fucking bullshit, man. Like, that is just straight cancer. Whoever designed that attack is a fucking freak. That is just cancer. That is just terrible game design. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. That's just not how good game design looks like, ever. That's just bad. Why is the stamina regenerate so fucking slow?
Quiet fool. You don't want to run.
That somehow hits me. Okay, sure, bro. Nice. He just pulls out a new move out of nowhere. I fucking dodged that, but okay. But again, like, that's just such horseshit. Yeah, of course. An attack where the timings make no sense and it goes through fucking walls. Yes. Yes! You got it, man. You should be fucking fired. You should not be allowed to have a job. You belong in prison. Yes, and then it crashes again. What a piece of shit game. Like, there's not a worse game I've ever played in my life. There's not a worse game. There's not. There simply does not exist a worse game than this piece of shit. Oh my god. The worst game I have ever played in my life. Holy shit. This game fucking sucks. This game is a piece of shit. It's just unplayable. It's just not playable. It's just simply not playable. It is what it is. It is what it is. It's just bad. It's just a bad game. It is what it is, though. It's just a bad game, though. The one thing said, it's the frame gen. Surely that's the issue, right? So fucking badly optimized, it's insane. Calling anything that runs this poorly Game of the Year is just a disgrace. Like, I'm just not gonna play this game if it does this bullshit every fucking time. Like, it's just simply not playable, is it? Like, why does the game look so bad as well? Do I have something to make stamina regenerate faster or something? When depleted. Oh, that one's really good. I can see you, baby. Don't make me crazy.
Report to Lord Nixie quickly.
Like, why is stamina regen speed so slow? I pressed dodge, but okay. If this reaches me, I'm deleting it. Nice one. Yeah, it's just, it's not worth it. Yeah, it's just, yeah. It's just dog shit. It's just, what can you do? What can you do? What can you do? The game is just bad. What can you do? You just can't do anything. The game is just bad. You just cannot do anything, and the game is just bad. Unplayable. To release a game in this fucking state, it's just disgusting. What a fucking mess. Honestly, what a fucking disappointing mess. Yeah. Dog shit. The game is just bad. I don't know. I don't know. Conflicting background software or unstable overclocks to stop crashes. Disable driver level FSR overrides. Clean install your graphics drivers. What the fuck is it? Driver level FSR. What is that? My love. Okay, surely that's the issue, right? Surely, right? It's gotta be the issue. Factory OCs. What the fuck is this? Why are they talking about crack? I'm gonna give it one more try. Surely this time it works. Surely, right? I did everything they told me. Surely that means it works. Come on, right? That's gotta mean what that's gotta be what that means, right? Not a woman that can take away my love. My love. My love. Not a woman that can take away my love. Oh, oh, oh. Because I could see my baby. Must me crazy, I know my crazy. Why does the game look so much worse out of nowhere? What? Oh, great. But this FSR 3 is terrible. This looks so bad. Oh my god, this looks horrible. Like, this just looks terrible. And it doesn't help anyways. Oh wow, that's even worse. Oh, it crashed even sooner this time. Interesting. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done trying with this fucking piece of shit game. It's just not worth it. The game is just not nearly good enough to warrant this. The game is just simply not good enough. It is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah, the game is just fucking dog shit. The game is just shit. It is what it is. Nothing can be done about it. It is just a piece of shit game. Crazy. Bro, I'm not down tuning my fucking RAM just to play this piece of shit. Like, don't get me fucked up. Baby, come on me crazy. Do I have any BIOS updates? I do. Would that be the fix? Highly doubt it, but who the fuck knows? Maybe it is. It does require a restart though, so whatever. Whatever. Bro, don't fucking tell me what RAM is, motherfucker. Like, what are you talking about? Don't try to tell me what the fuck RAM is. Let's just finish this video, I guess. I don't know.
Feudal bond and the whole concept of this war he's fighting in has been
What a fucking mess.
I have to stress that these guys were really fighting for something they believed in, and I have to stress again that everything was so specific in the medieval mind. The system they lived in told them exactly what they were fighting for, what the rules were, what it meant to violate those rules, etc., etc. So when that whole system broke down, my question is, does that knight's whole idea of reality break down with it? Well, thank the good Lord above, we have a perfect contemporary chronicler to answer this exact question, and his name was Jean de Joinville. Jean wasn't a career soldier, he was a regional lord and really more of an administrator than a fighter, which I actually think makes his account even more interesting to us. In 1244, the French king Louis IX, who would later become Saint Louis, started organizing the Seventh Crusade. At this point, the Crusades still loomed really large in the European imagination, even though the returns had been diminishing for quite a while, and Jean joined up partly out of a sense of feudal duty and also
the fucking hand cannon, look at that.
35 years before against the Albigensians. Long story short, the Seventh Crusade was a complete disaster in pretty much every sense of the word. The basic strategy was to cross the Mediterranean, invade Egypt, and then take the army and march up into the Holy Land from the south. It didn't work out that way at all. The army pretty much immediately got cut off from its supply lines, tons of soldiers died from dysentery or scurvy, and then the still fight was crushed by the Mamluks at the Battle of Al-Mansura in 1250. Jean's account of the battle is actually incredible, and forgive me for getting hyped up about this, but this is the kind of thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. All I want to do is to reach across the
and all I ever wanted was to see you smiling, and all I ever wanted was to
taste like. Give me the texture. I love this because Jean doesn't describe the battle as this sequence of heroic actions, which is what you would get in epic poetry from the Middle Ages. He narrates it as this mishmash of these close calls and then this general insanity and chaos, but then a few moments that stick in his brain. He says, "While I was on foot with my knights, wounded, as I have already told you, up came the king with his own division. There was a great shouting and a tremendous noise of trumpets and kettle drums. He halted on a raised roadway. Never have I seen so fine a man in arms. He towered head and shoulders over his people, a gilded helmet on his head, and in his hand a sword of German steel. When he had halted there, the good knights of his household hurled themselves into the midst of the Turks. You must know that this was a great
Oh,
feat
shit.
of arms, for there was no shooting of arrows nor bolts. On both sides, it was a fight with mace and sword. Let's just take a second to talk about what's happening psychologically here. So Jean is wounded, he's on foot, he's surrounded by chaos, and the detail that burns itself into his memory is the image of the king. This is actually how traumatized memory tends to work. Everything is this crazy blur, and then one or two images crystallize and stick. It's like the brain has to cling to something stable when everything else is falling apart. Somehow, miraculously, Jean survived all of this and managed to get back to France in one piece.
Yeah,
although
how the
presumably
fuck?
he was pretty shaken from the whole experience. 20 years later, King Louis tried to get the boys back together for
Okay,
another
bro.
crusade, and shockingly, a lot of people said yes, even though the last one had been a
But why?
but Jean put his foot down and said no. He had gone on the Seventh Crusade with this enthusiasm and this idea that God had willed it and they were going to
Like, bro, but at some point, like, if you have had 7 crusades and the last ones have all failed, surely you'd think that the Mamluks or whoever it is that you're trying to fight would fucking expect you and would know how to fight you by now.
Then the actual reality was that the whole thing was kind of pointless, and the flower of the
No
French
shit.
nobility, along with the rest of the army, pooped themselves to death or had their flesh rot off from gangrene.
Yeah, how did
before they even
people
got to fight the
die of diarrhea back then?
enemy.
That's one thing I
Now, it's
never
important to mention
understood.
here that Jean is writing all this, or actually dictating it, about
Like, is it because, like, they got infections? How did people in medieval times die of... In medieval times, they were deadly to the several dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Because germ theory was unknown, diseases likely dysentery and chlorea caused the body to lose fluids faster than they could be consumed. This critical loss ultimately led to kidney failure or cardiac arrest. Ah. The primary driver of this were highly contagious bacterial parasitic infections like Singelia, spreading to contaminated food and water. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. So it's because they didn't have clean food and water, and diarrhea would make them lose
after the events
a lot of
described.
water,
So
and
he's
then
an
they
old man
couldn't
at this
replenish
point,
it, and
looking
they'd
back at
just
his
die.
life. When you read his account, you can tell he's trying to recreate this world of the holy crusading king that no longer existed in the France he lived in. But at this point, King Louis is dead, his fellow veterans are dead, the crusades were all a failure, and he's and the actual reality was that the whole thing was kind of pointless, and the flower of the French nobility, along with the rest of the army, pooped themselves to death or had their flesh rot off from gangrene before they even got to
Ugh.
the enemy. Now, it's important to mention here that Jean is writing all this, or actually dictating it, about 50 years after the events he's describing. So he's an old man at this point, looking back at his life. When you read his account, you can tell he's trying to recreate this world of the holy crusading king that no longer existed in the France he lived in. But at this point, King Louis is dead, his fellow veterans are dead, the crusades were all a failure, and Jean is sitting there thinking the same thing that a lot of American veterans have found themselves thinking in the past few decades. What were we even doing there? What was the point of all this suffering? We'll never know if he had any symptoms of PTSD, but we can certainly tell that he's carrying an injured soul and that his entire worldview was crushed by this event he lived through in his early 20s. But like I said before, Jean wasn't a career soldier. He kind of just tagged along in the crusade.
I mean, yeah, seeing so much fucking death, disease, and destruction, and just like for no fucking apparent reason, and yeah, that must have an effect on you, huh?
Guys who did this kind of thing constantly. What kind of psychological effect did it have on them? If you've been watching this, well, there's a really convenient narrative connection for me here because Jean de Joinville's grandson, Geoffroy de Charny, is exactly the guy we're looking for. He
Oh,
grew up
shit.
hearing his grandfather's stories about the Crusades, and he ended up going to war himself, and then he basically came up with this whole philosophical system to try and make sense of all the suffering. Geoffroy was the third son in his family, which in the Middle Ages meant he inherited absolutely nothing. That really
Yeah.
sucks, but what's cool for us is that it meant he had to become a tournament fighter and earn money and honor by messing people up. Eventually, he graduated to real
Bro,
warfare.
also tournaments, like, especially, like, you know, the jousting tournaments are so fucking stupid. Like, just think about it. You and another dude are running full speed at each other on horses, which are bred for war, full speed at each other with long pointy sticks. For no fucking apparent reason other than to just kill each other for some reason. Like,
There's
why?
also this story about Geoffroy where he apparently once tracked down a man who had betrayed him, dragged him out of bed, decapitated him, and mounted the body parts on the town gates. Eventually, he was appointed the job of bearer of the Oriflamme, which was the sacred battle standard of France. This was a ridiculously dangerous job because you're the guy holding this incredibly important ceremonial flag, which means everyone on the other side is going to notice you and try to kill you immediately so they can steal the flag, because that type of thing was huge for medieval battlefield morale. He actually did end up dying at the Battle of Poitiers in 1356 with the flag still in his hands, surrounded by 5 English soldiers who he had apparently taken with him. Geoffroy was, of course, very much respected by every dude in the realm, and sometime before his heroic death at Poitiers, he actually wrote a book called The Book of Chivalry, which for about a century afterwards was basically the operating manual for French knighthood.
Damn, that's cool.
Is that Geoffroy is pretty blunt about the reality of war. It's not like some flowery ode to fighting or whatever. He talks about the hunger and the thirst and the sleepless nights, battling for days at a time, watching your friends die. The point of mentioning all this stuff is because he wants the reader,
damn, that motherfucker's chopped,
to know what's coming. There's this part where Geoffroy talks about a certain point on a military campaign where you feel like, and I quote, even nature is going against you. If you look at the context, it seems like he's doing his best to describe this sensation of your own body becoming alien to you, something that we would label today as disassociation. Of course, his solution to this is to push through it, but the fact that he even acknowledges it in a 14th
that's
century
crazy.
book is actually pretty insane. You don't really find that kind of thing a lot. Another idea that Geoffroy touches on frequently is
Yeah, bro,
terror,
this photo,
which
bro.
definitely means the fear of death.
This photo.
More importantly to him and to the chivalrous French mind, the fear of shame. The whole late medieval Western ethical system that he exists in is built on a single idea, which is that the worth of any deed is measured by how much it costs you to accomplish it. Jousting is good, tournament fighting is a little better because it's more like war. Real war is the best of them all because it actually destroys you. The suffering is what makes it worth anything. You see this idea a lot in medieval thinking, like imagine monks finding God through fasting and wearing hair shirts so they're constantly uncomfortable or in pain. So basically what we've ended up with here is a system where the psychological wounds of war aren't really something to be avoided or even necessarily treated. There's something that you have to earn and then endure, but then you convert them into your identity. At least that's what Geoffroy did. You're not allowed to not be damaged because being damaged is proof that you were there. Also kind of ironic, or maybe actually heroic, depending on how you look at it, that he wrote a book about what it looks like to be destroyed by war and to keep going anyway, and then he died proving that point. There's a reason he's remembered as one of the coldest knights who ever lived. Let's go a little more local for a second.
Damn.
Medieval people witnessed way more violence in their day-to-day lives than we do.
Yep, they did.
How that impacted their mental
They had
health.
public executions, they just had public whippings, all this other shit, bro. They just
broader communal way.
didn't give a
To do
fuck
that, we
back
have to
then.
look at one of the most incredible surviving documents from the late Middle Ages, a canonization inquest from 1363 in Provence, southeastern France. A canonization inquest was basically a papal legal proceeding to determine whether or not someone should be a saint, and in this case, the candidate was a noblewoman named Countess Delphine de Plumichel.
Well, I guess she
had
became a
passed away
saint.
about 3 years before the inquest, and a bunch of people in the local community believed that she had maintained some kind of mystical direct line to God during her life. So 68 witnesses came before the 2 papal representatives, and they testified about Delphine's miracles and their own experiences. What does any of this have to do with PTSD or moral injury, you ask? Stick with me, I'm leading you on the beautiful, sensual dance of history. The witnesses in the inquest had all survived the Black Death, mercenary invasions, and civil war in a 20-year window between 1343 and 1363. That's a lot to try and process in such a short period of time. These people ran the spectrum of medieval society. You have merchants and soldiers and servants and noble lords and local nuns and future cardinals. But they all give a similar description of what Delphine was best at healing. All the stuff that they had gone through in the last few decades had left them with these internal emotional wounds that they couldn't really explain or properly describe, but she was able to somehow make them go away. So these are 14th century people in rural France explicitly articulating that war and violence produce a different kind of wound than physical illness, which means it requires a different kind of healing. Let's just pull an example from the inquests and see what we can see.
Yeah, mental health was not well, a thing for pretty much up until like what, 100 years ago, if even that.
Witnesses is a local lord named Ferrarius of Cucuron. In May of
Like mental health was only ever taken
Attempted
seriously in like the past
to
40
remove
years,
the
no?
town of Cucuron from a mercenary company that's been terrorizing the area. Before the battle, he's all messed up. He visits Delphine and he tells her about the whole situation.
Belle
What he
Delphine.
says is that he's afraid of going into battle, but he's also afraid of not
Holy,
going,
that helmet is fucking sick. What
because
the hell?
retreating would bring this unbearable shame on him and his household. Ferrarius is trapped here. This medieval honor code has kind of forced him into a position where both of the available choices absolutely suck. If he fights, he's probably going to have to kill somebody, which the church understood as a wound to the soul, or he himself could die. Then if he doesn't fight, that's cowardice, which messes with your identity and your social standing. Delphine, of course, tells him not to go, but he tells her he can't follow her advice because, and I quote, he did not dare to follow her warning because he would be shamed and reproached for timidity. So Delphine makes him a promise, which is that he won't kill anyone and she'll somehow intercede directly with God on his behalf. She's basically doing her best to try and manage his moral injury before it even happens. Now,
shit.
miracles happen pretty frequently in the Middle Ages, and I personally believe miracles still happen now, but we're just too distracted and overstimulated to notice them. Everything
Is that
Delphine
so?
told him ended up coming true. Both of his horses went lame, he was forced to leave the battlefield, his men charged ahead without him right into an ambush and they get slaughtered, but he escapes unscathed with his honor and his soul still intact. Boom, not bad. When the papal commissioners questioned Ferrarius about this, they asked him directly, if the horses hadn't been injured, would you have ridden with your men? It is kind of a loaded question because he's testifying in a cathedral in front of a bishop and an archbishop, so he wants to look like a good Christian, but he still answers honestly. Yes, he would have ridden. Of course he would have ridden. He's a knight, for God's sake. His fear of shame would have overridden his fear of death. He would have been in that ambush and he would have died right alongside his men. Let's just sit and let this marinate for just a second. This man came before a papal court.
That's
and admitted
crazy.
publicly that he had been afraid. This chivalrous Catholic warrior had been afraid. He admitted that he had literally needed divine intervention to survive with his honor intact. The inquest basically gave him a structured communal space to tell that story, and in telling it, he was able to process it. It's the same way that Jean de Joinville was able to process his trauma by dictating it all out loud to a scribe 50 years after the fact. This is a civilization that understood at some level what moral injury required for healing. They built something, the inquest, the penance, the community, the saint, that basically...
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, I
is a
did,
structured
bro, I
space for doing
got
what
fucking...
moral injury requires. Confession,
This is too much
narrative,
going on for me right now, bro. I'm not listening to bullshit this guy's saying.
This medieval masterpiece. I'm not saying that medieval soldiers didn't suffer from PTSD. I mean, they almost certainly did. Even Geoffroy de Charny, in his book on chivalry, mentions that something knights will have to deal with when they come home from war is, I quote, being beset by great terrors. So clearly this was a thing. What I'm really trying to say is that we've spent the last 100 years or so treating combat trauma as a strictly medical problem, and the solutions are usually prescriptions or cognitive behavioral therapy. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but I think what's important for us to understand is that moral wounds are very real and need to be treated as such. I know I say this in every video, and I've already said it in this one, but everyone thinks of the Middle Ages as this brutal and chaotic time where nobody knew anything, but just look at the evidence I've laid out here. Clearly, in some ways, they understood the nuances of mental health better than we do. But what do you think? Is there something to this, or do we have a better approach now? Let me...
Cool. Anyways, I'm done. I'm gonna end stream. I'm gonna update my BIOS, update this other shit, do a full clean install of the fucking bullshit. And then see if the game works. If it doesn't, too fucking bad. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching this channel. Bye bye.